Yeah. So I'll be sharing my screen with you guys, and just give me a second here. Yeah, give me a second. I'll be rejoining the call. There's
Okay. Meanwhile, what you can do is, please put in the chat box which language you are comfortable in, English or Hindi, or mix of both.
मैम चैट बॉक्स स्टार्ट नहीं हो पा रहा, पता नहीं कहाँ पे रहे ये।
आप रिजॉइन कर लीजिए सर, लीव करके फिर से रिजॉइन कर लीजिए, आपको 3 डॉट्स दिखेंगे.
hello.
Yes, Tirumugan. Yes.
Yeah. So I'll be sharing my screen now. Okay. Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes, it's visible.
Visible, right? Okay, yeah. So, like today, I think we'll mostly be going over what does like UI UX career opportunities, what do they look like in the emerging markets, right? This is specifically like an interesting. This could be an interesting session, especially because if you look at it, UI UX in India at least was very limited to websites and mobile apps that you see, but now it's evolving to a more. It's taking more deeper roots as we go by, Hannah. So now, like, you have a lot of things that people talk around design, right? Someone talks about making a nice animation. Someone talks about making an amazing poster. Someone talks about website. Someone talks about what colors they like for buttons and how some things feel easy. But then, what actually is design, right? Is it how it looks or is it how it feels? But no, it's ideally design is how it works. It's how something gets along with each other, how the different components you see get along with each other, and how they work together to get a job done for you, right? And now, if we look at it, there are two types, two parts to it. There's aesthetics and there's functionality. So if you look at functionality, it's ideally how what a certain button does or what a certain function does. Like if you open your app, Instagram, what does it do? It shows you images. That is a functionality. It shows you reels when you go to your reels. That is a functionality. But then the aesthetics is basically that is it nice to look at? Is it easy to look at? Is it visually pleasing? Right? And that is basically aesthetics. And they both go hand in hand because if you just focus on one, you'll either have a very ugly looking design, or if you focus on just aesthetics, you will have something that looks really nice, but something that people cannot use at all, right? And there's a lot of confusion about what is art and what is design, right? So art is more about personal expression. Someone paints something, someone sings a song, someone makes music to basically talk about their own expressions about something, right? But when you talk about design, it's a slightly different thing. It's about problem solving. You figure out a problem someone is facing, and then you try to see how do you tackle that problem, how do you solve that problem, and then how do you get it to the user that is facing that problem. And that is basically the difference between design and just like visual art that you see. And what is UX design specifically? It's user experience design. It's how your users would be experiencing things. It's like very simple, but let's just go forward to meaningful things, right? So when you go for UX design, what value does it provide for users? It gives users a sense of use, like they find that they find your product useful, easy to use, and enjoyable. Because like let's say someone gives you a TV remote, and that TV remote has buttons placed in random places, right? Would you still use the TV remote? No, you will feel like something is off with it. Like, say, imagine you have to buy something from Amazon, and now Amazon, imagine it wasn't designed well. Now, you probably say something was probably like just dial, right? You have to search for a shop, then you go to the shop's website, then you call the person up, and then you ask them, hey, can you get this to me? Can you deliver this to me? And then you do a lot of other things. But the focus on design and innovation made Amazon a simple thing, right? It created something like Amazon where you go, you see a list of products, you add them to your cart, and you pay for it and you buy them, and it ends up at your doorstep. Your interaction has reduced a lot. You tell them, you tell your mobile what to do, and it does it for you at this point. And that's how products are made, right? They're solving some problems that you guys are facing. And as things become easy to use and enjoyable, you like using it more and more. Your problems are solved. And when it comes to businesses, they have a lot of customer satisfaction and loyalty and brand reputation, which makes them perform better, which makes them make more money. And this is very important, right? If two, three people are doing the same thing, but your design is better, you're going to have a competitive advantage over your consumers any day, right? And it leads to higher conversion rates and reduced customer support costs. If your design is closes the loop completely, it takes care of everything that needs to be taken care of, that means that your business won't the business or the company you'll be working for doesn't need people to tell people what to do. Basically, your product will do that for you. So when you look at like UX design, is it like a screen? Is it a diagram? Is it like a wireframe? Is it like a skeleton? No, it has a lot of components involved to it. It's a huge iceberg. What you see on the surface is the visual design, the app you see. But then below it, it all starts with understanding your user needs and your product objectives. You try to figure out a problem, right? For a problem, you try to figure out who is the user you will be reaching out to, who is the user you will be serving, right? For example, take Swiggy. When they first started out, their focus was more towards the younger working crowd who stay alone, who might like to order food. And before that, the focus was more towards people who would bulk order for parties. And after that, it became towards supporting orders by like our parents, like our grandparents also as well, and became easier for them to use. So it's all about understanding the problem and figuring out your users and solving for each user group iteratively. And so basically, once you figure out their needs and product objectives, then you can figure out what do you need to build, what is a feature that you need to build, and how do you build that. Then you talk to your engineers, then you get to understand that. And then you go ahead with making information architectures and then making wireframes for your design to basically take it forward to somehow coming together and becoming something solid, something more tangible, something you can experiment and play with on a screen or like a voice command or something, right? And then you add copy to it, which is like text to it, and then you go ahead with how do you move from one step to the other? Can you reduce any step? You look at all of these things. And finally, you give them colors and beautiful graphics that end up as your visual design. So this is the entire UX iceberg that goes ahead. And what is user interface as a part of the iceberg is that you cannot have UI without UX, right? Obviously, because we just looked at how big UX is. And you cannot have, and the entire term of UI or UX design is like a complete flaw. It's just UX design. UI is usually a part of user experience design, right? And user interface basically brings your experience together. It gives people buttons, it gives people images to look at, it gives people text to read, it gives people direction to do something. It gives people minimal things to work with. You don't look at a lot of cluttered things, right? So that is basically UI. It catches your users' focus onto the most important thing that they will want to do. So once you understand your users, you will also understand what they will want to look at and what do they want to do here and how do you nudge them towards it, right? And that's where your user interface plays a very huge role. Now, let's go to, like, as for the session, let's go to emerging markets in India, right? So this is especially, it might seem basic, but I'll get into more detail. Anyone has any questions as of now? Yeah, Sanchari Sarkar, do you have any question? Hey, your hands up, Sanchari.
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, yeah.
Yes, I do have two questions. Can
Uh-huh.
you please tell me which softwares are mostly used in companies for UI design? And is it really mandatory to have a knowledge about coding?
Which softwares are mostly used in companies for UI design? It's usually going to be Figma or Adobe XD or Sketch. But I think the industry standard nowadays is Figma, and it's also free to use. You don't have to worry about anything. Is it mandatory to have knowledge about coding? No, not really. See, at the beginning of your career, not at all. But once you start growing in your career, it'll definitely help you to have basic knowledge about how your CSS or your HTML works, because you'll be working very closely with front-end developers. And now and then it'll be easier for you to communicate with them if you know that. And going forward, I think you will gain that as you start working, right? You'll talk to more developers and engineers, and you will learn how certain aspects work. The more you learn about how the backend works from them, you can also understand how can you make your designs easier to implement. Because at the end of the day, if something can be done with the least amount of effort possible, that is what any company would prefer any day, right? So yeah, you don't need to know anything when you start your career, but going forward, it's a very good skill to start accumulating from your. Yeah. Can you explain in Hindi? No, Kunal, I'm sorry. I think like for the sake of the session, I'll be sticking to English. And hello, sir. I'm a graphic designer. Hey, I cannot teach you how to make a client, and you probably have to reach out to them on LinkedIn and build a portfolio. Yeah. So let's look at emerging markets in India, right? We have e-commerce growth in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, right? So this is important because till like I think like 2 years or 3 years ago, a lot of focus for quick commerce and e-commerce was more towards metro cities. You have Chennai, you have like Delhi, Bangalore, Kolkata, because that is where more people order, and that is where digital literacy is higher. But now, if you look at it, you have it more shifting towards. Yes, Sanchari, you have another question? Guessing not. No one has any questions. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, so the demand for localized shopping experiences is increasing from a company's point of view. Like obviously there are going to be people who will buy from you, but there are companies that want to expand their markets by going into more smaller cities and towns. And the mentality of people differs from town to town you go to and city to city you go to, right? And you'll have to design for that as well. And when you next thing that next emerging market, which is going to be like very big in the coming, especially 5 years, is going to be logistics and infrastructure. You have like many more industries that are putting up their manufacturing plans in India, and they're starting their manufacturing plants in India. And your logistics and infrastructure is does need software, right? And this specific software is usually done with SAP, or if you look at it, a lot of it is being done manually. You have like a bunch of dudes who sit behind a table in each company, and they make calls and they talk to the right people in the right places to get something done. But that is obviously a lot of manpower, and it also leads to a lot of human error. So you see a lot of these companies move towards automation and self-serves. Like you as a company will want to give your user the power to work with your logistics or do your logistics in a very easy and automated manner at a click, at the point at like a click. I think one of the things that has brought up a logistics boom in India is something called Vahak. They brought in they automated the entire system of truck booking, right? Before that, if you had to book a truck for anything, you had to call somebody and then you had to get things done. So that is one emerging market in India. Then the next thing is digital payments and fintech. So digital payments and fintech has been there for a while, right? Why am I adding this here? UPI has been there for a long time, but the amount of people that use UPI in yes, Vinit, you have a question? Okay, I'm guessing not. Yeah. So like when you look at digital payments in fintech, it is more towards again your bigger cities, right? If you go to a normal town or a village, you don't have as many people using Google Pay or anything else. Fintech. Fintech is financial tech, Sanchari. It's basically we're talking about things like Google Pay, Phone Pay, Paytm, UPI, and whatnot. So yeah. So that's one thing. And education tech is one more industry that is starting to boom. This is another emerging market. And especially if you look at it, there is a lot of I don't think there is a demand from the users, but there's a lot of demand coming from the side of businesses. They want to start up new education platforms. They want to start up new education. They want to expand their existing education systems into rural places. Again, I'm not talking about Byju's here. We don't go there. I'm talking about like actual ones that are trying to do a good job over there. And these people, they need to expand towards the rural sector because that is one place where education is not reachable through manual terms, right? That is where your tech usually will bridge the gap between that for them. And the next thing is rise of telemedicine, e-pharmacies, and health monitoring. So telemedicine and e-pharmacies have been there for a long time with Practo and like you have like 1mg, Tata Health. But health monitoring apps is something that's on the rise right now, especially because you have a rise in also sports tech in India. Health monitoring apps for sports persons and sports people, people who like to work out. You have a small attachment to your body wearable that directly communicates with your phone and gives you a lot of information. And the next thing is agri-tech. And agri-tech usually looks towards marketplace and financial or advisory services right now. But there is going to be a good increase in how you will be using tech to provide easier tracking and easier soil science to farmers as well as governments. If, for example, right now I have a friend who works on this entire mapping of India's soil software, and then mapping basically provides the government of India with data as to where what soil should be going, like where what soil is will be present in the coming years, and how to plan your farming accordingly through the country, and how can you suggest to farmers. So all of this data is slowly being built. These models are built, and they need to be taken to the users very soon, right? And that is one place you will be having a lot of design and software where you have new products come up, you are going to have new products involved. So now in these industries we spoke about, what are the key challenges and what is the main focus going to be on is one, rapid digitization of things. How do you bring things on your phone, on your laptop, on screens, and not just on papers and office booths or something like that? Then the next thing is, now you bring these products to rural users and they're also getting more accustomed to internet, right? And the focus in these industries will also be on them. And the third thing is about increased smartphone adoption. So till now, can someone tell me, like maybe someone from the group here, tell me what do you guys use your smartphones for right now, as of today? Anyone?
To get the information about the outside world.
Okay, get about also for communication. Okay. Anyone else? You can be free. We can have like a nice conversation here. Be free to talk about anything. Browsing. Okay. I guess that's about it. So
Basically everything.
yeah, basically everything. You use it for a lot of things, right? So when you go to an office, like when you go when till date, when you go to an office, have you seen your business people working on phones as much, or do they prefer laptops?
Phones.
Phones, right? And that's becoming very, very increasing uh like pattern if you look at it. Like till like I think till like 2 years ago, till like pre-COVID, people used to be very dependent on Excel sheets and softwares and dashboards, right? But that data is turning more towards your phone screens and your smaller phones. And how do you utilize your minimal screen size in order to give the same amount of impact you could give on a laptop screen, right? So that is one thing about increased smartphone adoption. That is one key skill that will help you guys uh, grow your career in general. And the next thing is about diverse and non-traditional user bases. If you think about like Instagram or any app, a traditional user base is probably say you or me or someone that is in the 15 to maybe 20, 30s age range, and these days even I think 30 to 35. But if you traditionally look at your grandparents or maybe your parents, they might not be heavy users of apps and solutions that you will be using, right? So how do you cater to those user bases in order to solve their problems? And not, and this is just an example with respect to age. And similar way, you have disabled people. Similar way, you have people that are challenged with respect to languages, right? So what are the challenges if you look at it is that there is a lot of infrastructure limitations when you look at rural areas. You have very slow internet, right? You have very slow internet, and you have like older smartphones comparatively in more rural regions. And in those cases, how will you make your app still give a good amount of impact? How will you make it give the same amount of impact both visually and also functionally, so that it is implementable easily by tech in such a way that your users can use it even in bad internet, right? How do you retain some information? And that is basically challenge that you should be looking into to solve for. And the next thing is, we spoke about diverse user base, and this is the most important thing. I think I've seen this the most in a lot of people I talk to. I think more about with older people and more about people who are digitally not so literate, right? Trust issues. They have a lot of difficulty in building trust by with using Google Pay, or they have a lot of difficulty in building trust with respect to buying something online. They have a lot of trust in even downloading a software update on their phones because they are scared something might go wrong. Because this is not the world a lot of people are used to. And like till now, these challenges weren't given as much importance because we and most of the companies and products wanted to capture the easiest capturable market, which is your Gen Z and millennial market, right? Now companies are working towards capturing older people, more rural crowd, smaller towns and cities, where you will be facing these challenges. Yes, Jwala, you have a question? Jwala Prasad, you're on mute if you're saying something. Okay. Yeah. So these are some challenges. And now if you look at what are some must-have skills, right? In this specific to combat in this specific like challenges we spoke about. How do you combat these challenges we spoke about? Is that you should definitely have some amount of localization, specialization in localization. For example, it's good to focus on what kind of like city you will be like your product will be majorly focusing on, or on a larger scale, what country will your product be focusing on. And these days it's very easy for like especially Indians, like a lot of other countries are looking for to hire Indians because it's easier to hire us and they can also pay us lesser compared to people in their own countries, right? So there are companies from Singapore, there are companies in Dubai, there are companies in Saudi, US, and wherever that might reach out or that might want to hire people. So anytime you work for these companies, right, you would want to specialize in the local area and how people in that specific country or specific city or area think. And that will give you an upper hand over how would you design a product compared to someone that does not have that understanding. And I think this is the bare minimum, because to compete with people in that region, you would want to know how the psychology of that region works, right? I can give you an example. Like, as much as people are frugal in India, I worked with a US-based company once, and their people are not frugal at all. Like, we have OTPs for credit cards, right? In the US, people do not have OTPs for credit cards. You click on one button, and your money gets debited from your account. No confirmation, no message, nothing. And that is the kind of difference you have, even with a simple payment bias that you have, right? And there are many more differences that rise when you look at a lot of specific things. So when you specialize in a local area and how the psychology of people there work, you learn to design better for them. Next is, this is like a basic skill again, UX research, understanding user behavior in markets and testing interface usability. So what this means is that how do you understand what your user wants in a market, right? You have, like, we spoke about a lot of these markets. We spoke about e-commerce, logistics, digital payments, fintech, edtech, healthcare apps, agri-tech, right? So let's look at, for example, in e-commerce, what do you want? Can anyone tell me as a user, uh, what would you want from an e-commerce product or an app? You take a second to think, maybe. Sales. No, as a user, like you're not the e-commerce company. you are a user of the e-commerce company. Like say you're buying using Amazon. What would you want, Akash? Discounts, cool. And Akash, will you be okay if your order gets maybe delivered in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks? Or do you want it faster?
Fast delivery.
Faster delivery, right? Yeah. And when you talk about let's say digital payments, do you guys have any specific questions? Rehana says easy interface. Correct. And when it comes to like digital payments, do you guys have any specific idea about what needs you want? Digital payments as in like Google Pay, PhonePe, or Paytm? Okay, guess we don't have any answers on that. So yeah, so like I'll give examples here maybe. So when you look at like digital payments in fintech, you'd want trust. You'd want to know where your money is going. You'd want to know if things have been sent correctly. You'd want verification. You'd want trust. You'd want security, right? And when it comes to edtech, people would want ease of learning. People would want uh, freedom to learn whenever they want to. People would want better understandability of things. And when it comes to healthcare, people would want accuracy. People would want speed. People would want basically correct diagnosis, and people would want correct data about their maybe health monitoring apps, correct heart rate, and everything. And when it comes to agri-tech, the needs are different for farmers. When it comes to logistics, people want to get the work done in the shortest period of time and save the most amount of money possible. So when you look at these different things, you have different use cases and users, right? And when you go into different user segments as well, they might have different needs. And how do you understand those things is by conducting UX research. You talk to your users, you talk to people, and you understand what they want, and then you show your designs or products to people, and you understand if they know what you're trying to give them. Can they use it? Can they understand what you're trying to show them? And that information and data will basically help you better your product to a point that people using it know what they want, right? Then the next thing, right? This third thing is very simple to say, right? Quick learning, ability to understand business and organizational context easily. And this is specifically important in the emerging markets. Like this third point is like very important in the emerging markets because you have a lot of designers. Like design schools are not a taboo in India anymore. People go to design schools as they want to. And you have many more that are opening up, right? And yeah, many more people that are learning design, doing design, and whatnot. But one thing that I've seen a lot of designers at different levels as well lack is that they are good at making good interfaces. They are good at making good user experiences, but they lack an understanding what a business needs and how the organization is working to do it. And understanding that business and organizational structure of how something works will give you an upper hand in the market because you are, as a design product designer, you will be directly involved in a lot of strategy and you will be directly involved in a lot of decision making for any company, especially in startups much more. Like you will be directly involved with what the product is going to turn out to, right? And if you think about it, uh, do any of you know, let's take a very simple thing. Can one of you like volunteer to tell me what is one app or product you guys use a lot? Anyone? I think Akash, you've been the most interactive one out here. Do you want to say something? Google, Sanchari, okay. Akash, do you have?
So what is your question again? The
No,
app we
yeah, any app or anything you guys like using a lot? Social media, WhatsApp, Google, any product you guys use a lot?
Google because it's trusty.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at like even Google or even like WhatsApp and social media, you know what you see on the app, right? In Google, you search for something, you get search results. In WhatsApp, you basically again just use it for texting people with videos or photos and normal text messages. And social media is like very broad now. Now, each of these specific companies have their own backend team that is set up. That not like, I don't mean engineering backend, but they have an operational team that is set up behind them that is doing certain things for them. If you look at Google, the backend team there, basically the organizational team works a lot towards legal stuff. They work a lot towards how do you advertise things. Yes, Mohan Babu, you have anything you want to say? No, I guess. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at Google, people are running ads. There is a lot of ads monetization that is going in, right? So the more as a designer you understand how Google Ads works, it's easier for you to design and place your ads properly as a UX designer, right? You can understand where your users will want to see these ads. So now you're learning something that is a new concept that you did not know about. How do ads work? How do you do keyword bidding for ads? How do people set up ads? And how do you use that information to give your end users the best experience and the most seamless experience in selling things when they search for something related to that, right? So having that knowledge will help you design and put together things better. And not a lot of people do have this. So it's easy. So it's better to start learning about how things work behind the scenes, and that will help you a lot in any interviews you'll be taking. The next thing is interaction design. How do you create micro interactions that cater to the unique needs of emerging market users, right? So you have like a lot of like macro interactions, like you click a button and you take them to another page or you take them to do something else, right? So I think one very nice interaction, like micro interaction, is that when you have to pay, now a lot of people are moving towards a slide animation. And that slide interaction basically works because you have some amount of time to confirm that you're doing a very non-reversible action at that point, while at the same time it's easier for you to do. And before this micro interaction came to place, people had to, if they had to make a confirmation, it is more about you read a text and then you check a checkbox saying, yeah, I know that this like transaction is irreversible. You give your legal checkbox thing over there, like you accept terms and conditions, and then you click on a button to pay, right? So that used to be the history about how it used to work, and this micro interaction is replacing that history that used to be there. And in a similar way, these micro interactions can be built to cater towards different kinds of audiences. Like, say, you want to celebrate something, you open your Cred app and you get a reward. You have a specific, celebration micro interaction that comes in, and these things especially matter because it makes experiences rememberable for people. Like they won't be like, oh, acha, this one has this amazing interaction, I'm going to come use it. That's not going to be the thing, but it's going to be like, now let me think if I should be opening app 1 or app 2, right, for doing something. And then you subconsciously as a user will remember, oh, this app 1 made me feel nice at some point by having a micro interaction that felt nice for me to use. And that will bring you towards opening app 1 subconsciously, and that will be a habit that gets built over time. And when you think about accessibility design, this is especially a very crucial part because now, especially in India, you are having a lot of products that are becoming more and more open to people with disabilities and different age groups to use. Yes, Akash, any questions?
So I just recently hear that my mentor, my UX teacher, he said you can't create a product for all accessible people. I mean, there is no product that can use any person, everyone.
Okay. And do you have the opposing opinion or do you have a supporting opinion on that?
Uh, I don't know. Some people say no, you can create, and yeah, that's all.
Yeah. So, under Akash, I think it's a very narrow way to look at if you say that you cannot create a product for everyone, it is true to some extent, right? But it is about how do you make that product easier for a person with a disability to use. Like, for example, today, people who are visually impaired, right, might not be able to click on buttons and see things, but they might be able to control the app via voice, right? They can probably click a button and they can tell your app to do something, and that it can do something for you, give you like auditory feedback. And it can give people, say you're maybe not completely visually impaired, but visually impaired to some extent. You can work with bigger font sizes, bigger graphics, right? That is one part of accessibility design as well. Like, say you are someone who has Parkinson's, right? Where giving very small buttons means that as someone with Parkinson's disease, you might not be able to click on it without feeling a little challenged. But say if the button is bigger, there's more place for you to click on, right? And that way you can click on it even more easily. So I think these are some examples of where you can include your normal design principles into accessibility for like physical disabilities. But major thing is you think about accessibility from a different point of view, where you try to design for someone maybe who does not know English, or maybe someone say who does not know Hindi, or someone say who does not know Tamil or Malayalam. They do not know the specific language that you want to design. How do you make it easier for them to use? How do you make your app in such a way that it can automatically scale to Google translated words? And when you come to age groups, right? Different people have a, like, I had an example of a specific case study that I worked on earlier, which was regarding how do you design an app for 6 to 8 year old kids, right? And around that age group, people don't have a sense of reversibility. Like, you now, if you take an app, you know that you're going forward from page to page, and then you start clicking on your back button, you move backward. But when you look at a 4 year old kid or a 6 year old kid, the kid does not have as much understanding of, oh, this state has changed to this state. And this is proven by like a psychological experiment that was conducted. So now how do you design for them? By minimizing the amount of backs that they have to do. You give them more assurance. You give them more assurance and you make them make a more like clear decision so that they don't change their mind to go back. And how do you take them forward, right? So that is one more idea of accessibility design. So obviously your one screen, your mentor might is almost correct, but I want to say is completely, they're completely right either. Your one screen cannot be accessible for every single person, but it can try to be accessible or try to help people who need it to be at least a little bit more accessible. Does it make sense, Akash? Or
Yeah.
okay. The next thing is service design. So the service design and quick learning goes very hand in hand, right? So what is service design? So this is one thing that a lot of people talk about, even in UX design. It's usually mapping the entire customer journey, considering challenges in infrastructure and digital literacy. So let's talk about, say, you have a logistics system, right? And do you guys think a truck driver would probably be as fluent as in English as someone, say, who is sitting in a Bangalore office and working? No, right? Very rarely. Will they be comfortable with reading a lot? So, like before making a decision, maybe not. But can you nudge them to do something with as little words as possible, but more clear actions? Yes, you can, right? So, like mapping your entire service out will help anyone understand how do you optimize not just the product, but the team behind the product to do something. So one of the one of the companies I worked at was a IP legal tech firm. So there, what service design meant to me was that you have a website where people can come in, like they can pick what trademark they want. They will enter a trademark name, they'll search for it, and they'll pay for the trademark. Be like, hey, I want to register this trademark in this city or this country, right? And they'll pay for it. But now After you register, after the user pays for the trademark, you need in the back end of the team, right, in the operations team. Now people need to have go through at least a set of 6 to 8 legal steps in order to make sure that this trademark can be registered in said country and so place. And how do you understand each and how do you understand how these teams in your operations uh, work with each other, and how do you bring forward the best experience in communicating how these teams are working with each other to your end user, right? That is service design, because you cannot expect your user who wanted a trademark to understand all these legal steps behind it. But at the same time, how do you tell your user if a problem has arisen? How do you tell a user if something has gone correctly? How do you tell a user if something's successful and it has gone to the next step, right? And how do you do that without overloading them with a lot of like spamming or communication bombing? So that is an example of how service design can turn out to be. And this service design depends from industry to industry you go to, and which is why it's very important to map the entire customer journey out and see how your team who's doing the job from your office will interact with the customer who is sitting somewhere else, who is not at all related to the team that is sitting in the back end of your office, right? So that is more around service design. And these are some must have skills that will definitely help you stand out in the emerging markets, like along with the usual UI UX skills, right? Which will definitely get you a job. But having these skills will make you stand out into being someone who is better than the normal designer out there, who can earn more than the normal designer out there, can build a better portfolio, a better set of clients. So now, if you look at future trends, this is like a very cliche thing to talk about. But again, your voice interfaces are growing a lot. And yeah, we spoke about low literacy or tech skills. Now, people who do not know how to read or people who are impaired visually will go towards voice interfaces. And till now, we don't have a lot of designers, to be honest, in India who work on voice interfaces as much, right? How does your voice interface respond back? How does your voice interface uh, reply? What language does it language as in like not your written language, but what tone does it talk back in? And things like that can be easily customizable, and it differs from people to people that might be wanting to talk to the voice interface. And I feel designers can play a huge role there in making that process more streamlined and easier. And now, when you talk about AI and personalization, this is nothing like fancy. AI is basically learning patterns and making it personal towards someone, right? And that's much easier now with like a lot of GPT models that are out there, with a lot of like pre-existing models, and also with like a lot of companies have their own in-house data science teams as well, right? So using that, how do you understand? How do you include this data in order to customize like experience for a user? Something very simple is how you always see things you want to see on Amazon when you go to buy something. How people add your names in, how people add taglines that you might want to see. All of this is being done in the backend by an AI model that works on it. And how do you use the most of it in your app without making it look like a sham? And the next thing is minimalist design. And this is important because right now people have a lot of cognitive load as society is moving forward. You have a lot of things that are going on around you, too many noises, too much traffic going on. You have a busy day at work, right? You already have spoken to a lot of people, you have seen many screens. Now you don't want to be overloaded by more things, right? So design is moving towards an even more simplified way of showing things, where you don't it doesn't have to be artistic, but it has to be less load for someone's brain, which is again cognitive load. And there in most companies there's always a talk about face to face. Like you launched a product, the next phase you'll want to work on how do you make it even simpler, how do you make it even simpler, and how do you simplify it to a point that it cannot be made any simpler right now with the tech you have. So focus on minimalist design is very important. And talking about super apps, this specific point is not important for users per se, because super apps are not something that users are used to yet, I believe. Like we don't use one app for everything yet. So an example in China is I have worked with someone in China. So I was talking to him, and he was telling me, he was showing me how they do not have a Google, they do not have a Google Pay, they do not have Instagram Reels thing, they do not have a YouTube. They have a WeChat, and WeChat is basically kind of WhatsApp for China, and that can be used to sell things like you sell things on Amazon. That can be used to sell things like you sell things on Instagram ads. That can be used to text people. That can be used to watch videos. That can be used like TikTok, all put together into one app, and that is WeChat. And people use it just like Google. So that is, it's a very curious thing, right? So what happens? So what happens there is WeChat is becomes a very profitable business because they have monopoly over a lot of things. And similar way, if you look at in India, a company, once it stops running out of things to do, the company is going to die out. They need to keep innovating and keep doing new things in order to stay in the market, stay valuable in the market, right? So apps are going towards a trend of becoming super apps, doing new things, starting new things, right? For example, you had like Zomato and Swiggy only used to do food. Then they started doing deliveries. Then they started doing Instamart. Now they are starting to do even e-commerce mall, like e-commerce purchases. Then they started to do like products you see on Instagram, you end up seeing them there here as well, right, on Swiggy Minis. So they keep expanding to become a super app in one kind of demographic per se, right? And knowing how to make your navigation between so many features crumpled onto like a very small screen, how do you put all of these features in one small screen, and how do you make your users interact with it, is a very crucial, it's a very hard skill, right? And you, like, I think no one has perfected it yet, but you keep learning and you keep doing it. So super apps are an amazing future trend that companies are leaning towards in order to become more profitable. And I think for emerging markets and career opportunities, this is all I have to say on the session. Do you guys have any questions for me? Feel free to ask any questions regarding this or regarding this session itself. Any good example of super app as UI UX? Nothing is perfect, but I think closest to a super app that we have right now is Paytm and PhonePe. And I wouldn't call Swiggy a super app yet, but they're moving towards that trend. But yeah, but if you do have a chance, do check out WeChat. Did you show any case study? Join? No, because I did not show a case study. I don't think this session was one of those detailed ones. Yeah. Anyone has any other questions? We have like I think 8 more minutes left. So this can be related to your uh, general portfolios or careers, or how would you want to switch your jobs, or anything you have, if you, regardless of if you're a fresher, if you're someone who's already working, if you're a graphic designer that wants to become a UI UX designer, any questions, anything you have, you can feel free to ask me. Yeah. Yes, Akash.
So I'm a fresher in a UI UX, and I just completed my course,
Okay.
and I have a one case study, and I'm working on a other portfolios
Mhm.
project. So basically, when I try to apply for any internship or job,
Mhm.
so there are like thousands and hundreds of application already. So how can I stand out?
So there are, I can tell you like a lot of ways to do that. So I'll just give you like some examples. Maybe one is make your case study much more concise and much more detailed. I think like if your first case study is definitely like I think 5 years down the line or 4 years down the line, you're going to look at your first case study and you're going to have a nice laugh for yourself. I've done that for myself. Now I look back at my first case study, I'm like, what is this? What did I write? Right. So I think a good place to start off would be try to go to a lot of maybe experienced designers, like maybe say go to some random Google designers page, go to some random micro not Microsoft, I would say like Google or Apple designers portfolio, on LinkedIn, maybe try to find their portfolio and go through how they write their case studies. And you will have a bigger and better understanding of how case studies can be written, right? There's a lot of detail to talk about. I think that will take another hour on its own, how portfolios are. But read more good quality case studies. Include that in your, yes, I'm sorry, I'll get to you. Give me 2 minutes. Include that in your portfolio as well. And when you reach out to people, right, reach out to them by solving a problem. When you reach out to a company, try to figure out what kind of problem that product's app or website or service could have, and how can you solve that problem. Try to propose a solution to solving that problem. And by giving that to a company, you are easily breaking the ice. And always reach out to don't reach out to recruiters first. Try to reach out to designers itself if you're trying to solve a problem, because recruiters and HRs don't usually understand the industry as much as people who work in the industry do, right? And the third thing is you can post online. If you have, maybe you have a case study for a specific company, post online and tag the company. If it gets good enough attention, you can reach out to them for a job. So it's all about how you communicate to this person. Applying on LinkedIn or applying on a website, I am not sure how often it works. If there's someone helping you out in between, like a recruiter, it definitely works. But if there's no recruiter helping you out there, then shortlisting your profile as a beginner or a newbie designer is going to be very hard. So yeah, reach out to people on your own is what I would say. Can you give us a brief of an ideal resume for UI UX designer? There is no. Can you recommend social media where we can share a design? Twitter, LinkedIn, I guess. Twitter and LinkedIn would be a place to go. And Sanchari, I can give you an ideal resume as such. Like your resume is filled with your job experiences, but I think having two case studies that solve something crucial or solve something complicated in a very easy way will do the job. Like you don't have to have a complete product. At the end of the day, people are going to go through your case study in 5 minutes. Recruiters don't have more time. Anyone in a company will only look at your portfolio for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, they should be able to understand how easy it is for them to learn how you think. Are they impressed by the way you are tackling a problem? If they're impressed by the way you're tackling a problem and you have decent skills, they're going to call you for an interview. So that's more of the, I think, scale you should work towards. Yes, Akash, you have your hands up again.
So after I completed my case study, the first case study, I show it to my classmate.
Uh-huh.
They are same batch. So one of them told me that why are you showing the complete information architecture, complete user flow, and your Google data, the data I take from a targeted user. So he said like anyone can copy this and make a better UI than you. So I actually think the same way because I completely designed the new app, and what if someone just copy data and make a better than me? So I asked my teacher, and he said it's actually depend. I mean, not many people show their full process. Like you can show half information architecture or user flow, but he say it's depend. So I see other Behance portfolio,
Uh,
and they are actually really good portfolio, and they are like showing everything, complete information architecture, complete user flow, and research.
End of the day, I have a question for you. The case study you're working on, are you going to make money off of it? Are you going to be selling it?
No, actually, as a fresher, that's my point. I mean, I even know that how can I sell my idea?
Like
I
it's your
mean, what if
right. You cannot be selling your case study, right? No one's gonna buy it. No one's gonna gain competitive advantage over you. Your case study is not a company's product per se. So there's no specific secret you're leaking out. What you will gain from putting it outside is basically that people will make it better. Then you get feedback on how you can do better. When you, if you think from a point of view that if you put something out there, then someone's going to steal it and make it better, and that's going to make you scared, that's very small thinking. You're never going to grow in the industry if you think like that. Feel free to, especially as a designer, one very important quality to have in any company is collaboration. even when you go to a company, you will make a good design. There'll be another designer in your team that will give you a better suggestion to do it in a better way. And the whole point is both of you collaboratively work together to give a better design for the company, right? And that is what the company wants from you, and you learn as well. So it's never a competition when it comes to this, and you should always feel free to put your entire information out, because that'll only help you grow. Did I answer your question, Akash? Yeah. Okay. Think we are almost out of time. Last 1 minute. Anyone, any last questions? I can take that, and then we move forward. Thank you to Sanchari, and thank you guys for attending the session. It wasn't that interactive, I guess, but to the ones who interacted, thanks a lot, and we'll keep it lively. And maybe, if possible, I hope to see you guys maybe in the coming days as well. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Murugan, for hosting the session, and thank you, rest of them, for joining it. I've shared the feedback form. Please share your feedbacks. That will help us improve the upcoming sessions. Also, I've shared the website link of Apna, where you'll find the recording of this particular session and the previous sessions. Tomorrow we'll be having the next session. Hope to see you all there. Thank you, guys. Good night.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sneha.